Before 2024, if you asked any non-Niner fan to name the team's third wide receiver, I'm betting most of them wouldn't be able to name him. And if you ask any non-Niner fan what the number 15 represents to them, I'm betting most of them will name a certain quarterback, even if they don't like it. But if you were to ask Niner fans those same two questions, I'm pretty certain they'd answer with three simple words. Over the course of the first two seasons of this series, I've talked about Purdy's main weapons: Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, and George Kittle. And up until 2024, there was a weapon that went completely under the radar to most non-Niner fans. But if you were to watch the Niners play, especially on third down, there was one name that was likely to be mentioned: Jennings, or as he's referred to by the faithful, Third and Jauan. If you were to go back to any Niner game over the past few seasons, the chances of a third down catch being caught by Jennings was very high, which is how the nickname came to be. If you look at his 2022 stats, they were consistent with that of a third wide receiver. And in 2023, while his production went down, which could also be attributed to CMC coming to the team, just like with Deebo, where he really shined was on many of the third down conversions. The play that really opened my eyes to what Jennings could actually do was Week 12 against Seattle, when he fought off multiple defenders to convert the third down. I'll be completely honest, I still don't know how he was able to get the ball across the line. Now again, to most Niner fans, they knew what Jennings was capable of, but my guess is that he really made a name for himself in the Super Bowl. He would become only the second player in Super Bowl history to have a receiving touchdown and a passing touchdown. In fact, I firmly believe that if the Niners had won that game, Jennings would likely have been named the Super Bowl MVP. I mean, I voted for him, but it's interesting when you look at JJ in relation to Purdy. Both of them were 7th round picks. Brock spent the majority of his first season as a third-string quarterback, while Jennings spent his first season on the practice squad. But once Jennings was given the opportunity, he became a major part of the 2021 season, and Brock, well, you know. Like I mentioned before, he made his impact in 2023 on crucial downs and in the Super Bowl. But in 2024, he would make his presence known in a major way, and people finally learned who Third and Jauan was in Week 3. One thing you might notice as this season progresses is that I won't be going over the games in chronological order. There's a reason for that, because this season will be about specific themes rather than specific narratives and games. And the reason why I wanted to start with the game in Week 3 rather than the Jets game in Week 1 is because this game represented a few of those themes. The first theme was Purdy's evolution as a quarterback. The fact is that Purdy, at least at the end of last season, was still being dismissed because of the team, and that he was never going to elevate players around him because he was already surrounded by so much all-star talent. Well, Ayuk still wasn't in regular season form by Week 3. Christian McCaffrey's calf injury actually turned out to be much worse than originally thought and wouldn't be healthy until Week 8. By Week 3, Deebo Samuel was out with a calf strain that he sustained the week prior, and Kittle was suffering from a hamstring injury, which also occurred during the week prior. Also keep in mind that Ricky Pearsall, at this point, was still recovering from his injury. So what did all of this mean? Well, what it meant was that Brock Purdy had the following wide receivers at his disposal: Brandon Ayuk, who was not playing up to his standards and was unreliable; Jennings, who hadn't really been the focal point of the first two games; Ronnie Bell, who was basically the fourth-string wide receiver; and Chris Conley, whose major contribution to the team was a great catch against the Packers and a few notable plays during the Super Bowl. And at running back, former third-string running back turned starter Jordan Mason, who was covering for Christian McCaffrey, and rookie running back Isaac Guerendo, who had been drafted in that season. Purdy was starting this game with depleted weapons, but that wasn't going to stop him from playing the same way he'd been playing before. And by that, I mean once again doing his best to elevate the pieces around him. And if there's one game that I think will showcase Purdy's ability to elevate, it's this one because of one player: Jennings. You see, up until this point in his career, Jennings' best game occurred in 2021 when he caught 6 passes for 94 yards and 2 touchdowns. In this game, with Deebo out and Ayuk not performing well, Jennings had a career game. In fact, since 2021, he had the second best game of any 49ers wide receivers, at least in terms of receiving yards. The only receiver to have more receiving yards was Samuel in 2021 with 189 yards. In this game, Jennings would go on to catch 11 of his 12 targets for 175 yards, and he would be the only receiver to catch a touchdown that game. In fact, he would be responsible for all 3 of Purdy's touchdowns. In Purdy, he would have one of his better games of the season, putting up 292 yards, 3 touchdowns to 0 interceptions for a final passer rating of 137.1. After that game, no one could say that Purdy and Jennings didn't have a spectacular game, except they lost that game by 3 points. And this would mark the start of the next theme of the season, the fourth quarter leads. I'll get into what I think are the causes in future episodes, but for now, let's celebrate the fact that Purdy made a connection with another wide receiver and elevated him to the point where he had the best game of any wide receiver in the NFL for week 3. In a game where Purdy solidified a new connection with 3rd and Jauan, he was still struggling to regain that connection with another one of his receivers. And fans were beginning to wonder if that connection was ever going to come back.